You're listening to the Midlife Ripening Podcast. I'm your host and your trusted midlife midwife, Brooke Hofstess. This is a space for real talk, soul talk, about living a life that's fully, finally yours. We're here for the second bite, the luscious, conscious one, the one you take not because you're supposed to or expected to, but because something inside you says, this is mine to savor. You've built the life, the career, held the family, the calendar, the entire ecosystem of care. And yet something deeper is stirring, a want, a whisper, a truth you're ready to name. Here we'll explore creativity, rest, desire, play, rooted confidence, and the holy audacity of being yourself. If you've outgrown the life that once made sense and you're listening for what's next, come closer. Midlife isn't a crisis, it's a coming home. Let's slow down, feel our way in, and begin again. Hello, love. Welcome back to the podcast. So, whenever a thread keeps surfacing in coaching sessions, I like to pay attention. And lately, it's been this thread around relaxed women. I'm thinking of the client who told me she found herself sitting, enjoying a cup of coffee in the middle of the day, drank the whole thing while it was still hot, and really let herself feel into the discomfort of not making herself busy or needed in that moment, and not kind of knowing what to do with the peacefulness, but also staying in it. And the thread of another client who spent the whole morning wandering through the aisles of a plant nursery, completely unhurried, laughing about how she didn't check her phone even once, and how it felt like she was doing something illicit, but also just so deeply satisfying. And then there's a client who, when I asked her about a recent trip, shared more about the interview she listened to multiple times along the drive, a conversation between Liz Gilbert and Tim Ferriss about the revolutionary image of a relaxed woman. Not someone who's spaced out or avoidant, but present and comfortable in her own skin and at ease in her own way of being, unbothered. So I listened to the interview out of curiosity because it had come up in session and was really interested in the way they kind of dug into this idea of stepping out of the cultural script of exhaustion and declining the familiar path toward becoming a tired, angry woman and laying down bitterness, not because life has necessarily been kind or soft, but because you've decided to have your own back. So, just out of synchronicity, later that day, my daughter and I were out running errands, and we were yelled at by no fewer than three older women. One barked at us to move aside, basically into oncoming traffic on the sidewalk. Another snapped at us in the checkout line. A third called us girls in a tone that, to be honest, kind of felt like a slap. On the way home, Dia and I talked about it, not just the sting that she felt, but the stories that might be living underneath that kind of sharpness. We talked about how hard it is to stay tender and open hearted in a world that rewards bite. How bitterness can settle into the spirit when you've gone far too long without language for your needs or your joy. And just to be extra clear, I'm not blaming those women, truly. I'm not here to assign shame or pass judgment, but I am feeling curious about what happens when we've been resilient for too long without rest and feeling seen and heard, when our exhaustion calcifies, when we don't even realize how much we've hardened and armored up. Because it doesn't always come out clean, does it? Sometimes it leaks sideways, snapping at the people we love, bristling at the women who seem too relaxed. When I'm talking about becoming a relaxed woman, here's what I am not talking about. I'm not talking about spiritual bypassing or avoiding discomfort or being a pushover or floating off into the land of love and light. That's not it. I'm talking about something more embodied, the kind of presence that fills out to the edges of your own life. A woman who is full to the brim with herself. And honestly, I'm talking about being more invested in your own becoming than being distracted by other people's BS. So I've been wondering, how many relaxed women can you easily name? I think immediately of my mentor, Leanne Raymond. I think of Pamela Anderson on the red carpet without any makeup on, just showing up unguarded in a way that startled people so entrenched in performance, in comparison, and judgment. And I think of my friend Katrina, who just absolutely radiates love and serenity. I think about how rare these women are. I can rattle off a list of women who are powerful, edgy, impressive, but women who feel truly at ease in their own skin. For me, that list is shorter, much shorter. And the longing to be that kind of woman or be near her at the very least isn't just abstract. It's visceral, it's political, it lives in our bodies and in the collective. So when I let myself really tune in, like really tune into the absence of relaxed women, not just in my life right now, but growing up through all my different rites of passages, it feels like a deep hunger, like a lack of nutrition, because there are endless reasons to brace in this world. And yet, something shifts when we begin to move through life differently. When we stop responding from urgency, defensiveness, overwhelm, and choose to respond from calm, from center. And by the way, if you missed the recent episode with Leanne, give it a listen. You'll hear her talk about what it's like to be around that kind of woman who makes everyone feel safe and more possible without sugarcoating anything. Maybe you've been feeling this hunger, this absence too. Maybe you've noticed how rare it is to be around a woman who is deeply at ease. When very few people have ever showed you what it looks like in real time in a staff meeting, at a family dinner, it's really hard to trust your own version of it, isn't it? You try to relax, but your body doesn't know if it can believe you. Your nervous system stays on high alert, scanning for anything that could go wrong. And the result is that we build a life that runs like a machine, efficient, controlled, predictable. Even our breaks are structured. Water the plants, scroll online, do some online shopping, put on something silly to watch, and then spiral into guilt or shame. So if any of this feels familiar, I want you to hear that you're not alone and there's nothing wrong with you. Because again, this is not just a personal issue. It's cultural, it's political, it's spiritual, it's ancestral. This longing for ease, for self trust, for the kind of rest that goes deeper than sleep is a response to generations of depletion and invisible labor. It's a cry for something we've rarely seen in each other and in ourselves, something we may have forgotten how to access and even how to resource. And so I think it's a fair question to ask what it has cost us. So take a minute. You can journal on this. You can always pause these episodes or just let these questions echo as you go through your day. Okay. What has been the cost of not being around relaxed women? And what's been the cost of not being relaxed yourself? So here's the thing about absence. It can make us forget what is happening right now, what's here right now. So let's go a little bit deeper because one of my priorities as a coach is helping my clients bring what's already working into the foreground, to ask questions like, how are you already becoming a relaxed woman? Even just a momentary flicker of her. So yes, we name the sticky spots, the places that feel tangled or hard to reach. But transformation doesn't just come from analyzing what's off or wrong. It also comes from amplifying what's going well and what we want more of. So before we go any farther, I want to offer you this possibility that somewhere in your life, you are already inhabiting being a relaxed woman. Maybe it happens when you sit down to text your sister, and without realizing it, you drop your shoulders and your masks. Maybe it's with that one friend where everything just feels a little easier and maybe even kind of ridiculous. Your goofy side just comes out. Maybe it's when you're walking or riding your bike or stretching and the mental gymnastics just melt. Can you feel into that version of you? What's present in those moments that isn't elsewhere in your life? What do you know in your body when you're moving from that rhythm? And how might you carry a trace of that energy into the spaces that still feel anxious or tight or over managed? No judgment here, just noticing. Because when we can locate ourselves in the middle of the journey, not waiting at the starting line and not chasing a perfect ending, we begin to build from the soil we already stand on. Here's something to explore again in your journal or maybe on a walk or just letting it swirl in the background. Take that kernel of ease you just named and start to trace it across your life. Write down all the ways you are already relaxed. Those micro moments when you feel fully in your seat, in your agency, the part of your day where your breath comes easier, your voice comes easier or clearer, the people or places or practices that help you feel most like yourself. Maybe it's the way you make your special tea or the decision to just leave that text unanswered, just leave it alone. I was joking with my husband the other day. I don't have to go to every argument that I'm invited to, right? Yeah. Let yourself be pleasantly surprised where the relaxed version of you is. And not in some far off future version of your life, but right here in the one that you already have today. Okay, I want to go back for a moment to speak to the part of you that might be feeling some resistance. Maybe you're wondering, hey, is this really the right time to ease up? Maybe it feels irresponsible to not be angry or naive to hold out hope. Or maybe the idea of relaxing feels like a luxury that is meant for someone else. If that's where you are, I want you to know I get it. Truly, I have been there. And not just like a long time ago, but recently. Because tired, angry women are not failing, they are responding with intelligence and accuracy to a world that has demanded too much from them for too long. I'm going to say that again. Tired, angry women are not failing. They are responding with intelligence and accuracy to a world that has demanded too much for too long. A world that keeps pulling us back again and again into the gravity of patriarchy, white supremacy culture, and capitalism, greed, cruelty. A world that breaks our heart and then expects us to keep on moving, to smile, to soothe, to serve, achieve, hold it all together without falling apart, at least not publicly. And still, here we are. We rise, we persist and protest while we are actively aching for something different, a different reality, a different world, something more whole and humane. And I believe that something else is possible for me, for you, for the collective. We now have research to support what many of us already know in our bones that when we are grounded, we see more clearly. Our thoughts become less clouded by emotional static or old stories. Because calm doesn't mean detached, and it doesn't mean disengaged, and it certainly doesn't mean not angry. But it does mean that our rage, our grief, our longing for a more beautiful, safe world, they live inside a bigger container, a steadier, wiser one. It means we allow ourselves to be more than any one thing. We're not just exhausted or enraged or triggered. We are also pleasure. We are joy. We are ease. Steadiness lets us stay with ourselves and what actually matters without getting swept away by urgency or swallowed by despair. Especially in seasons of uncertainty, calm becomes clarity. It becomes discernment. It becomes our compass. So, in that podcast I was talking about, Liz Gilbert shared that her path to becoming a relaxed woman rests on three anchor points: boundaries, priorities, and mysticism. Those are the threads that she returns to, the ones that speak to her deepest reality and help her stay rooted. For me, those anchors are probably beauty and magic, because where those two meet, I feel like a relaxed woman. I used to think that I had to earn my peace, that beauty was something extra, nice but not necessary, that magic was maybe for other people, but certainly not academics. But over time, I started noticing that when I was surrounded by beauty and magic, intentional beauty and magic, not the overly curated kind, I felt more like me, more steady, less reactive, more able to choose how I show up. Some days that looks like a slow walk through the fog, where the forest around me feels like it's holding secrets, or opening a cookbook to a random page and building my dinner plan from there, or taking my daughter thrifting, or asking her one of those offbeat questions that pops into my head that somehow turns into the best conversation of the day. Nothing that I'm talking about is a grand gesture. These are just everyday, accessible moments, but they are filled with a kind of aliveness. And they do soften my edges without dulling my clarity and my care, the kind that help me face the heartbreak of the world without collapsing under it. So, turning the question to you, what would your anchor points be? If you had to guess, what two or three things help you feel most relaxed, most like yourself? What do you need more of or less of to feel like the most relaxed woman in the room? Not the most impressive or the most self sacrificing, the most relaxed. Okay, love, there is so much more that I could say on this topic, but for now, I want to invite whatever stirred in you during this episode to settle, not on your to do list, not in your head, but somewhere inside your body, in your heart, or in your chest, or in your belly. No pressure to fix how relaxed you are or to figure it out. No need to make any changes before you're ready, just letting it linger. Because the conversations we have on this podcast aren't about lifestyle tweaks. I always joke that you won't find any midlife makeovers on my channel. What we're up to here is belonging to yourself. And that kind of belonging takes honesty and practice and community. We need other women modeling and reflecting and cheering us on. So, for this episode seed, I want to offer you a question that you can write on a sticky note or pop it on your fridge or set a reminder on your phone, but something that you can come back to and check in with over the next couple of days. The question is, what would a relaxed woman do right now? Not a good woman, not a successful woman, not even a productive woman, a relaxed one. When your alert goes off, when you walk past that sticky note, just try this question on. Let it interrupt your day in the best possible sense. Let it speak to the part of you that is curious about what else might be possible. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today, and I will see you very soon. Thank you for spending this time with me and for making space to ripen in your own way in your own time. If something landed with you today, trust that it matters. And if you'd like to take what you've heard here even deeper, I offer individual coaching and small group programs for midlife women reclaiming their rhythms and desires. You can learn more at brookehofstadtcoaching.com or join my email series, The Second Bite. And if this episode spoke to you, I would be so grateful if you'd leave a glowing review or share it with someone ripening alongside you. Until next time, tend your heart and take the second bite.